Nobody is asking the right questions. I'm sure by now the vast majority of the world has seen this event with Will Smith and Chris Rock at the Oscars. But nobody is seeing the real story. Everybody has showed up into one of two camps. Sound familiar? Camp number one, it was all staged. Camp number two, I think it was real. There's a third option, and nobody is seeing it. What if either one of the two individuals had been perhaps of a different race? It would be still front page news on CNN, on MSNBC, on the liberal media. They would be talking about nothing but this. The reason they're trying to keep it quiet is because that wasn't the case. But there's a second level to this. If it was staged, why would he resign from the Academy of Motion Pictures if it was staged? And men, if you decide to go out and defend your wife's honor, are you crying 5 minutes later? You'd be calling a press conference. Anybody else who wants to talk crap about my wife, you're going to get the same thing. Especially if you're a guy at this level who has really no worries for money or whatever. See, this doesn't add up. This doesn't add up, but there is a place you can go to figure it out. And it goes all the way back to 1996 in a movie called Bound. If you would like the readout on this and what really happened, join us over at Patreon. Psychological Operations Training, $1 per month. It's a great time to sign up right here at the first of the month, so you'll get the full month for your dollar. It's even less if you sign up for an entire year. At one time, it's like 90 cents or something like that per month. Fully refundable in your first 90 days. Gloves off, no censors, lay it all out and show exactly what the real story is. Once again, 24 cognitive biases, 24 logical fallacies. You will find out exactly what happened and exactly why. Now, I'd like to ask my audience a question. If you were out for a stroll in the woods and you came across a mother grizzly and her cubs, would you be afraid? Well, I think the vast majority of my sane audience would say, yeah. I might not react right away. I might stand still for a minute. I don't think I would panic, but I would feel afraid. If you were swimming someplace that you thought was safe and you turned around and you saw this swimming at you, would you be afraid? Would there be fear? Well, of course there would be fear. I would say you'd likely have a better chance getting up tree than you would getting away from this guy. But I guess it just depends on the situation. The point being is if you survive the event, you'd remember every single detail of it. Every single detail. And you'd relate that story over and over and over again. Because every event where you can add an emotion to it, even if it's fear, it makes it unforgettable. And that would make sense in an evolutionary standpoint, wouldn't it? That if there are things that we do that almost cost us our lives, we should probably remember not to do those things. Danger's real. Fear is a choice. Will Smith. A lot of people are wondering, what did that have to do with Will Smith? This is exactly why. I led with the Will Smith story. Danger is real, and fear is also real. How you react is a choice. But fear is real. Here's his entire quote, just so nobody tries to take me to task for this. Fear is not real, he said. That's absolutely not true. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. That's also not true. It can be fear of what's going to happen right now. It is a product of our imagination, causing us to fear things that do not at present and may not ever exist. Grizzly bears exist, and so do alligators. That is near insanity. Do not misunderstand me. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice. Danger and fear of things that are real is real. Now, when we look at it in the context of this guy, Zombie. Here's this guy. He's got his weapon. He's got his gas mask. He's got all his gear. Zombie is a metaphor for an unprepared person who will kill you for your food, water, and shelter. See, this guy is creating a make-believe enemy that he thinks might exist in the future. Might exist in the future. Might exist in his neighborhood. Might not exist in his neighborhood. And he's going to label all of those things zombies. Therefore, he's going to make decision A, B, C, D, based on things he has no confirmed evidence for. Just assumptions. Now, some people might say, but Florida Maquis, shouldn't we prepare? Shouldn't we be ready just in case? Let's go back to the Depression, when this actually did happen, when people were out of money. People didn't have any jobs. Food was short and expensive if you could find it. Everybody was looking for jobs. This guy's sign says, I know 3 trades, I speak 3 languages, I fought for 3 years. This is probably reference to World War I. Have 3 children. No work for 3 months. 3 months. But I only want 1 job. So he was out of work for only 3 months? For only 3 months, for only 90 days. 90 days and he was already desperate. But these were supposedly the people that knew how to can, and knew how to farm, and knew how to hunt. The people back from the turn of from the 19th to the 20th century. This guy knew three trades, spoke 3 languages, was a soldier, had 3 children. But only after 90 days of no job, he was on the street begging. There was a video, that wonderful, fantastic video, by the way, Patriot Nurse did years ago with her grandfather. And he related the story of when he was young and growing up in the Depression, and talking about picking tomatoes and blackberries and how much eggs cost, kerosene for light, old age pension. She did a mirror interview also with her grandmother as well. And I didn't cover it, but nowhere in the interviews did they mention one time violence. Nowhere was it ever mentioned, or did she, I don't even remember her asking, what weapons did you stockpile? How many rounds of ammunition did you have? Were there roving bands of people seeking out others to take advantage of, like this guy says will be the case? Now remember, there's a lot of people out there that have a lot more than 90 days worth of food and savings. This guy, after 90 days, was walking down the street with a sign hanging over his head. I looked this up, and this is actually truly the case. Of the 6 causes of death that compose 2/3 of total mortality during the Great Depression era, suicide. Only suicide increased, not starvation. In fact, cardiovascular and renal disease, that corresponds with eating too much and drinking too much, really, was the case. So the biggest effects were psychological. In fact, here to the right, here's a sign that says, wanted urgently, a strong rope to do something that I can't mention on YouTube. Alternatively, unfurnished accommodation for my wife, unborn child, and myself. Think about that for a minute. Who would create a sign with where'd they get the pole, where'd they get the paper, where'd they get the ink? But wife and unborn child, but this was your first request? See, when people came here from the old world, 15s and 1600s, you could say that they were far worse off by any independent standard as far as food and what they had waiting for them in the New World. What was so different, and what will be so different in the future? This is why I talk about psychological operation so much. It's going to be the idea of what's coming, not what actually comes, that's going to cause people to make decisions differently. And that's what you're going to need to look out for. This is the video over at the Florida Mucky Patreon channel. When both choices are impossible, then what? Changing your mind, checking your emotions, and making a plan. We would love to have you join us over there for $1 US per month. Even less if you sign up for a year. Trust me, there'll be people down in the comments who will tell you that it is worth every penny. And literally it is. Pennies, 3 pennies per day, to figure out what the reality is and what the real story is behind this that nobody is seeing. I'll leave it there. God bless, like, share, subscribe, and have a great weekend.